We built a bow out of ironwood, which was one of the most challenging builds I've ever done. And we provided dinner for the family in the form of a snowshoe hare. I want to give this bow away to you guys. So make sure you stick around until the end of the video to see how you can have this bow for free. This is a piece of ironwood that I had shipped up to Alaska from the lower 48. This will make an incredibly hard shooting bow. But what I'm unsure of is if it's even workable with hand tools. And that's what we're gonna find out today. So the first thing I need to do is take off the bark. I've got a couple of clamps and a little draw knife. I've had several people comment on my YouTube videos that they'd love to get into bow making, but they don't have the space for it. One of my favorite things to do is to go to campsites and just bring a couple of these little plastic C-clamps and use a picnic table. You don't have to do this at your house. The bark reminds me of like an eastern cedar or a juniper. It's pretty fine and it scrapes off very easily. Okay, I may have discovered a problem. I think these are signs of termites or worms. Hopefully that doesn't go through to the actual wood, it's just in the cambium. Once I get all of the bark off, I'll try and assess if that's actually going to be a problem for me or not. It's in the worst possible spot though. It's mid-limb. Now that I've got most of the cambium off, I'm just very carefully thinning it and leaving these thin brown streaks. What I'm most concerned about is these worm lines. But as I'm taking them off, it doesn't really seem like they actually go into the wood. Now that the majority of the underbark or the cambium is removed, I need to draw my design. I've decided that I'm not going to mess with all these worm marks right now, and I'll just sand them once the bow is a finished product, and I'm going to get rid of all of the cambium. I'm just worried that if I try and take it all off now, I'm going to accidentally cut too far into the wood with my draw knife, and so it'd just be safer to take it off during the sanding process. Let me show you what's in my backpack full of tools. So you've already seen my clamps and my small draw knife. I also have a saw. This is a Japanese pole saw. There's a low-flying airplane. It's the end of moose hunting season here in Alaska, and so there's a lot of low-flying airplanes still looking for moose. I have a big draw knife. I think if I was to go back, instead of buying a small one and then eventually needing a big one, I would just get a medium one. Something like a 6 to 8 inch straight blade draw knife would be perfect, but they're actually kind of hard to find. This is a hatchet or a hammer, depending on which side you use. This is a 1-inch chisel, just a cheap one. A half-round Nicholson rasp pencil, a tape measure, and I have sandpaper and a chalk line. I also have this big farrier's rasp, which removes a lot of material very fast. You could do the whole bow build with a medium-sized draw knife and this rasp. But now we need to draw on our bow design. Now I just need to find halfway. From the center, I go either way 2 inches, and that'll give me a 4-inch handle section. 1, 2, 1, 2. And then 2 more inches, and that'll give me my fades. That's where it goes from a narrow handle section to a wide limb.
Hi! I brought you a leaf.
Oh, thank you. My handle section will be 1 inch wide. My limbs will almost certainly get narrowed later, but I'm just going to start with 2-inch wide limbs and mark 2 inches all the way down this bow. I've heard sculpting referred to as a reductive art. Like when you make pottery and you're adding clay, that's additive, and sculpting and bow making is reductive. So I want to be very careful not to take anything away that I might later want. So if I start with 2-inch wide limbs and they're 65 inches long, that's bigger than necessary for a hunting bow for myself, but I can always shorten the limbs and I can always narrow them later. So I'm just trying to get closer to the finished dimensions, because depending on how this wood feels as I work it, I might change my mind. Now I'm going to be pretty aggressive here and get down to that line as quickly as possible. This is the first time I'm actually touching the wood with a knife. and so far so good. So far this cut's a lot like hickory actually. I think it's a harder wood. The grain is so straight, it almost wants to peel away from itself. So when you put a draw knife on there, it's almost like splitting away thin little curls of wood. But because it's so hard, I'm hoping that it's better in compression than hickory, and you can get away with a narrower limb or a heavier bow under the same dimensions. Now that's what you need to be careful of. This giant splinter wants to come off, and if I let that split all the way off, it would go well within my lines. So I'm going to have to come backwards and cut from the other side until I get to the end of this splinter. Now the front profile is pretty close. It's almost starting to look like a bow. However, it's way too thick to bend. So I'm gonna get rid of all of this extra heartwood and just junk on top. There's a real nasty split going on right here. I might have to use my saw. Let's see, this tree is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 34 years old. It's actually kind of interesting looking at the growth rings on the back because this tree grew way fast in the first 5 or 10 years in big, thick growth rings, and then just slowed right down to a crawl. In the bow building world, there's like top tier bow woods, which are like Osage and yew. And then I think hickory is breaking into that top tier wood when people are realizing that whitewood bows are just as fast, if not faster. But then even in the like B tier woods, you know, you've got your oaks, ash, and elm, black locust, and then there's like the almost trash woods or sea woods that people just totally overlook. And I think that this is one of them. Ironwood is not something I hear people talk about very often. Those woods are so expensive, but you can buy ironwood for like a quarter of the price of a good Osage stave. And for a beginner, like so far, I would recommend this. This heartwood is not cutting very nice at all, so I'm going to try a different strategy. I'm going to use this saw and cut down every 6 or 8 inches and then try and split it out with a chisel. I'm hoping now that the heartwood is gone, this will cut easy again. We're getting a lot closer to a bow. Starting to thin down. I don't have any sort of flex. So what I think I'm gonna do is I'm gonna draw lines at 1/4 of an inch. If I can flex it a little bit against this bench, then I'll leave her there and start tillering from there. So now that this is down to my line, getting a little bit of bend, I'm at 12 inches, we'll keep full thickness of this limb, or full width. But right down here at the bottom, we want it to be about 1/4 of an inch wide. In about 5 hours, I was able to go from stave to bow blank. So this is a bow-shaped object that hasn't been tillered yet. It bends a little bit, but it's very stiff. If I was to just get this bending evenly right now, it'd be well over 70 pounds. Overall, my first impression of Ironwood, super positive. I don't know if it's just this piece or if that's pretty normal, but this is the clearest grain stave I think I've ever used. Probably the only tree I've ever tried to make a bow out of that didn't have at least a little bit of propeller twist. I'm going to take this home, and then tomorrow we'll see if we can go from bow blank to functioning shooting bow. In order to put a string on this, I just need a couple of simple knocks. Try to make them even though. Super simple knocks that'll hold the string on, and we'll make them pretty later. This string is way longer than necessary, so we're actually just gonna tie a knot right here. This is a pretty simple tillering setup. I've just got a hook right here, and I wrap a strap around my bow. Then there's another hook down here, and I have a little pulley. My rope goes through that pulley. This is just so that I can pull the bow back and take a step back and really look and see what's going on. I've got a little luggage scale. I'm just going to pull back on this with my luggage scale and see what's going on. So I can already tell that this outer 2/3 not bending at all. Now I just got to remove those pencil lines and then check again. Continue this process until it's bending super smooth at the draw weight that I want. Alright, I'm pulling this bow to brace height at 60 pounds right now. I think I'm going to aim for 60 to 70 pounds, which would be the strongest bow I've ever made. But first we need to string it, and that's going to be very difficult. Oh, we got it. The bow is strung. Now this will give me a more accurate representation of how the bow is actually bending under a proper string. With a long tillering string, you're just pulling on things from a different angle, so it looks a little bit different. So far things are looking really good. We're getting close to finishing this bow right here. That's 50 pounds. Got another 8 inches to go. Just want to get that part bending a little bit and then we'll keep going. And I've lessened the weight quite a bit. Now it's pulling 60 pounds at 25 inches. I need to get it all the way to 28. And that is terrifying. I just, those last 5 inches every time I tiller a bow, I just am so afraid it's gonna explode. There it is. 65 pounds at 28 inches. Let's do it again. Oh no! What went wrong? So it was a tension break. With whitewoods, typically the back of the bow is stronger than the belly of the bow. So theoretically you could tiller the bow all the way down and then fire harden the belly to make it stronger, because if it were to fail, it would fail on the belly side. A more dangerous break is called a tension break, which is where the stretching fibers on the back of the bow break. And the reason that's way more dangerous is because if it's a compression break, it folds. If it's a tension break, the bow comes apart. But what matters is that we learn from our mistakes. And I think in this case, I should have gone longer if I was going to go so heavy, because it only broke the second I had it back to tillering length. I had it to shooting length multiple times. And I think you got to take those worm marks seriously, man. Maybe I should have sanded it down and gone to the next growth ring. It took a while to track down another piece of ironwood, but I've got a very nice one right here. This is from another local bowyer here on the Kenai Peninsula of Alaska named Cody. But all of the picnic tables are covered in about 1.5 feet of snow right now, so we're going to do this one in the inside shop, and I'm going to just repeat everything that I did before. I'm going to leave this one 66 inches long, and we're going to shoot for a 50-pound bow. The reason that I'm going to go with a slightly longer and slightly lighter bow than last time is because I don't want the design to be the reason that this bow breaks. For the most part, the experience of working with this other piece of ironwood was pretty much the same, with 3 notable exceptions. There's no termites underneath the bark, so that's always nice to see. This bow has quite a bit of twist going on. This limb is clamped completely flat, and then you can see the amount of twist that is in that side. And also, even though there's no termite marks or anything, there are these weird dark streaks on the belly side of the bow, or the side that faces towards me. And I don't know that that dark wood is going to cause any problems. It could play a small factor, but overall I think that this piece of wood is pretty clean as long as I can get that gnarly twist out of it. So what I'm going to do to get the twist out is I'm going to use this heat gun to apply heat to the belly side of the wood, and then I'm going to pull on this clamp and straighten it out. And hopefully once I heat these fibers, they'll kind of plasticize a little bit, and then it'll allow the fibers to slip past each other, just like steam bending. And then if I keep the pressure on until it cools down by hanging a weight off of a lever. Then hopefully tomorrow, when it's cold, this limb will be straight and then we'll be able to jump right into tillering, which is when the last bow broke. I know from the perspective of the video watcher, this has only been 10-15 minutes, but for me, I've been working on this bow and the one that I broke for months. It's pretty straight, not perfect, but I'm gonna tiller and get it back maybe halfway and then re-straighten it again. So we just need to put a couple of string grooves in it right now. This is when the last bow broke during the tillering process. So this time I'm gonna take my time and go extremely slow and be very careful not to break the bow. I'm marking the spots that are not bending with Sharpie, removing with my rasp, and then sanding it down to smooth, and putting it back onto the tillering tree and repeating this process over and over and over again. It's a tad bit light. There's three things that you can do to increase the draw weight of a bow. You can shorten it from the ends, you can back it with something like sinew, or you can fire harden the belly. And since I'm testing this wood, Ironwood, I don't want to back it with sinew. I almost feel like that would be cheating as far as the wood goes. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to fire harden the bow, add a little bit of reflex to it, so when it's unstrung, it'll come forward of the handle. And I'm also going to shorten the tips and add antler tip overlays. And all of that should increase the draw weight of this bow. I'm hoping by about 10 to 15 pounds. I also decided that this would be a great time to shape the handle. This is the same backset form that I've used countless times to fire harden birch bows over a real bonfire. But today I'm going to use this heat gun, and I'm hoping that the backset will add a little bit of draw weight as well. Right now this bow is pulling 30 pounds at 28 inches. I was hoping for 50, but I kept chasing the perfect tiller and lowering and lowering and lowering the draw weight. I also think that because I was a little bit afraid of this wood with the last one breaking, I was being extra careful and I was afraid to put that pressure on the rope. Even so, this bow's taken a little bit of set or string follow, and I think that the reason for that is because this wood is still pretty green. So the fire harden will do two things. It'll dry it out and it'll fire harden. I guess three, because it's adding a back set as well. So I just fire hardened it, and now I want to check to see how much of a difference that made. Tiller looks about the same. Fire hardening caused this bow to get stronger by about 6 pounds. Ironwood is supposed to be a very strong wood. Something else that's really strong? Sheep horns. So instead of using antler tip overlays on this bow, these are dull sheep horn tip overlays. It's important to do some sort of tip overlay when I'm working with these whitewoods because the strings I use are low stretch. And that means that they cause a lot of friction so they wear down on the wood a lot. And if I didn't do a tip overlay, eventually that tip would snap off. I'll let you guys in on a little bow building secret. Probably at least 50% of my time when it comes to bow building is sanding. But I don't often show it in my videos because it's boring. This bow would shoot just fine if I didn't do any sanding at all, but if I'm trying to make something beautiful, then I want it to really shine. And the way to do that is to sand it from 120 grit all the way down to 600. Since this bow ended up being a lighter poundage bow for smaller game all the way up to a deer, I thought a great horned owl would be a perfect animal for the handle art. I recently had a great horned owl on my front porch hunting my pet rabbits, and it had to have been the most impressive bird I have ever seen. Final tiller check. So far so good. 28 inches. Shortening it by an inch added another 8 pounds. Okay, this is my first time shooting this bow. Pretty good. So I'm at my favorite rabbit hunting spot. This is my first time shooting this bow. But I shoot bows enough that I'm really good at learning a new one. And also, because of the way I cut my arrow shelves, they pretty much all shoot the same. Are you ready to go hunting?
Yep.
Hello! You gonna hold the camera?
Yeah.
Alright, ready? I'll follow you.
Okay.
Snowshoe hare populations go in 7-year cycles, where on the 7th year there will be more rabbits than you can believe, and then it'll go down and there'll be almost none left because they actually starve themselves to death by eating all their food source. Can you see it? Right by that. Let's see.
I see it.
There's one right there. It's a pretty far shot for me. Oh, just behind him. All the way. Another long shot. See his ears right there. Oh. He didn't stick around. I still see him, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to get a shot on him. I'm looking for ears or a silhouette of a rabbit. It's weird, the rabbits are just slightly yellow and the snow is almost slightly blue, but everything's white, so it's a very small difference. Backtracking a moose. Oh, see that one on the edge of the trail? That's got to be 50 yards. No possible way is he letting me get close enough. I'm going to call it today. Getting too dark to see, too dark to retrieve arrows. So we're going to turn around and head out of here. Today I saw 5 rabbits and took 2 shots. It's the next morning. I'm out here alone, and it's much colder, so I'm hoping that by being by myself, making a lot less noise, and a little bit colder temperatures, the rabbits should be hunted down. Hit the tree just over his head, and I lost my blunt tip. Just behind him. Got him, got him, got him. All right, we finally did it. That was a tough rabbit hunt, I'll tell you what. I hit this rabbit twice. Once in the body, which stunned him a lot, and then I ran him down and nailed him in the head, and then it was over. I'm definitely going to upgrade my arrows to broadheads, just so that there is none of that chasing rabbits around. Try and get as quick and efficient of a kill as possible. However, the blunts do the job. And that was out of a flu arrow, which slows the speed of the arrow down substantially. We built a bow out of ironwood, which was one of the most challenging builds I've ever done. And we provided dinner for the family in the form of a snowshoe hare. I want to give this bow away to you guys. This is a sweet shooting bow, the Great Horned Owl Ironwood sheep antler tip overlay bow. Gets the job done. I really think I've become pretty good at bow building, but I need to step up my arrow building game. So expect some arrow building in the next video. I did a bow giveaway about a month ago, my Home Depot bow build challenge, and I gave that bow to a guy who lives in North Carolina. But what I learned from that giveaway is that I can make my money back in ad revenue for the materials as opposed to selling it. And I know that lots of people comment on my bows that they would love to purchase a bow from me, and I'd love for you guys to have them, but I don't want to sell them because I think that would limit who the bow is available to. So instead I want to do giveaways. So if you guys can do your part and share this with your friends, make sure you enter the giveaway. If we can get these videos to perform well enough that the ad revenue pays for the materials, I don't have to sell bows. I can just give them to you for free. So let's see if we can make that work. Enter the giveaway, link in description. It's just a Google form. You're going to answer a couple of questions, put your email address so that I can contact you when you're selected to win the bow. And I hope whoever gets this continues to hunt with it. I'll catch you guys in the next video.